Good evening. Today is the 5th of December, 2015, the day of Sri Aurobindo's Mahasamadhi. And we are continuing with our explorations in Savitri, Book 2, Canto 2, with Alok Pandey. But I would like to begin by speaking about this day. Today on our website, motherandSriAurobindo.in, we put Dr. Prabhat Sanyal's talk, Mother's urgent call to him to come to the ashram as quickly as possible. It was around the 1st of December. And he didn't have the easiest time getting here, but he made it. And he was to look after Sri Aurobindo. It's quite an article that he has written. And we know that when Sri Aurobindo left, he poured everything of himself into the mother. He once said to her that if one of us has to leave, it will be me because your body is stronger. So this is just a story, and then I will ask Alok to speak a bit about this day of Sri Aurobindo's great sacrifice. But the story is this. Dr. Sanyal was there until the end. And then sometime later, he developed Parkinson's disease. I knew him as a friend, but not so well. But he came to New York against the mother's wishes, and he wanted to have the surgery. The mother said not to be operated on, but he came to New York. He was a very good man. I want to impress that upon you. A very good soul. So he had the procedure, and in those days they drilled through the skull for Parkinson's, and it didn't help him at all. He came back sometime later and started going to yogis throughout India, asking them to heal him. He finally gets to Satya Sai Baba, and he comes before Sai Baba, and Sai Baba looks at him and he says the following: "Why do you come to a 40-watt bulb when you have the sun?" Let's speak to us about Mahasamadhi. Many have written on it. Amal has written extensively on this day. You have written also.
Savitri,
Yes.
lo, it is finished. The dread, mysterious sacrifice of God's martyred body. It's a paradox.
Yes.
Actually, we read last time something connected with it. Thus taken was God's plunge into the night.
Yes.
And this plunge is repeated again and again. And the purpose for this plunge, in fact, entering into the domain of matter, assuming a material body, is itself a death. For those who
For
are
the divine.
Yes.
Yes.
For those who are conscious, who live in greater realms, who come down, it's a death because it's to suddenly deal with all the unconsciousness of matter, its inertia and
its
resistance and the limitations. That itself is a great sacrifice. But still the problem is not just in matter, but the inconscient that lies behind its back. So matter itself is a front. We have read last time that up till subtle matter there is no problem. But the moment the plunge takes place into the utter inconscience, then the matter itself assumes a different hue and color. It's like it's put in chains, it's bound as it were, And therefore, the soul here experiences the extreme agony of ignorance. And the only way to heal it is if the divine plunges headlong himself into the inconscient. So, what we call as death and departure, this much is certain, is our experience, but not the experience of the divine. That's why the mother gave a very interesting message. To grieve is an insult to Sri Aurobindo. It's one of the very strong messages. And today I was reminded of it again and again. To
Yes.
grieve is an insult to Sri Aurobindo. He doesn't say it's ignorance.
Yes.
At another place he says that those who say that Sri Aurobindo is dead,
Yes.
they are ignorant. And then she describes beautifully that Sri Aurobindo is as he was, ageless. And she describes the form. She describes that even when he sits just as he would sit when he was in this gross material frame with
Yes.
one leg in front. That also she describes.
She says anyone can see him if they are
Anyone can
open.
see him, approach him. He is
She
readily
says,
accessible.
yes, and to speak to him at the samadhi.
Samadhi, that's there. She speaks about that, now he is much more accessible
Yes.
and anyone can see and connect with him. Yes, the joy and the delight of matter being touched by the divine, that is another story altogether. And every time the divine takes a human body, it's basically to transform matter. This is what the mother has revealed. Divine has taken birth earlier also. We have the story of the incarnations,
Yes.
at least the documented incarnations. There could be more. But always it is to transform matter. Otherwise, he can manage things from above to help the devotees, the disciples, to create social, political, other changes. Even spiritual revolutions he can do with the help of vibhutis. There have been movements like that.
Yes.
He doesn't have to descend really and take a human body. But the assumption of a human cloak is precisely to deal with the problem of matter, to come to grip with the problem. And that's what Sri Aurobindo attempted, the mother attempted. The past incarnations have attempted in their own way. And there are countless stories streaming through my mind sky which I am shutting down right now. Each of which indicates something of the divine descent and grappling with the problem of matter. But one story particularly I would like to mention. I think in the passing I did mention it one of the days. Because people often ask, particularly people from, when people from an Indian background ask, I am very surprised. Because I can understand, where this wealth of spiritual literature is missing and one asks a question that Sri Aurobindo is no more. I can understand. But when someone from an Indian background asks this question that why did he die, how did he die? So I often remind of the story of Rama and Lakshman. Can we imagine on the battlefield, both are unconscious, totally at the mercy of the enemy. They are under the influence of a weapon called as Nagapash, completely unconscious. And, no one knows what is to be done. It connects with the story of Dr. Sanyal.
Yes.
So, then who can tear off the Nagpash? Garuda. So, Garuda is called to help. Hanuman goes and calls Garuda. So, Garuda comes and takes away the Nagas, and Rama and Lakshman wake up and they are free. And all the monkeys shout, "Hail to the Lord Rama." Now, Garuda is wondering, what is this nonsense? Can't they see that I am the one who has done this? And they hail Rama? So he tells Hanuman that, look, you have not trained the monkeys well. They don't know. They have lost logic, practical sense. I am the one who has helped. And they say such thing that hail to Lord Rama. What was Rama doing? He was unconscious. So Hanuman tells him that you won't understand, Garuda. You have done your job. Good job. Go back. So he says he has also lost his head. And so he goes through worlds and asks the Trinity, and eventually, to cut the story short, he is told finally that, see, you ask Lord Vishnu because he is the one, your master, and probably he will only clear your doubt. But there is no doubt that the monkeys are right. Every god tells him this. That, it is no doubt the divine's victory. But when he goes to the abode of Lord Vishnu, Vishnu is not there. So he realizes what it means. Now, basically, Dr. Sanyal was called, he had the same dilemma. Because he wanted to do something for Sri Aurobindo, and the mother said, "No, don't you know? You have not seen him."
Yeah.
Nirodha wanted to do something. And mother said, "After having lived so many years with Sri Aurobindo, you still ask such a question?" They wanted to do something medically.
Yeah.
This or that.
And they're flustered because at one moment Sri Aurobindo is totally
Yes.
aware, taking food and
Everything. And Nirodha has recounted that.
Yes.
And the mother said that, he was fully conscious. He would come out and completely. And Dr. Sanyal was wondering why I have been called if I am not to treat my divine patient. And later on, he discovers it. That it was a special grace given to him.
Yes.
To be there. So when, even when we are in the part of the larger scheme of things, given a small role, maybe even to be so-called, the divine can play at many things. He can play at being bound and somebody comes to heal. He's infinite. Everything is possible. And here he had not even been called to heal. In fact, he had doubt when he looked at Sri Aurobindo, and he recounts that how the mother touched his head and he suddenly saw the supramental light like a mantle covering.
So beautiful, yes.
So he has documented that in this call from Pondicherry. So the mystery of the divine incarnation, the mystery of his birth, the mystery of his departure, so-called departure, is no doubt one of the greatest mystery. And it's a puzzle we cannot solve in our limited state of consciousness. But what we can do, we must do, is to be grateful. Because if he did not do it, the riddle would remain a riddle. There would be no solution. No one can do it. And the
millenniums might pass.
Millenniums might pass. And eventually, he has to do it as the pioneer. The mother said that, "I don't want you all to do it. It's a very, very messy work, very difficult work. But my body has been given for this purpose. It has been built for this purpose." So, this is God's covenant with the night. This is the mystery. And thus alone can the night, or as he says, in death's sessions, repatriate immortality. So, this is how the change takes place. And the world will see the effects. Already we can see, the inconscient's tail beginning to slash because of the plunge which Sri Aurobindo has taken with that light right into it. And I must say, he's very much, to use the word conscious and alive is itself to bring down what Sri Aurobindo is. Mother said that he is keeping a complete watch over all the world events, over all that is happening at his ashram, in the world, in his disciples and devotees. But those who love him, who have the rare privilege of having love for him, they can feel him, see him, and he reveals himself to those. So this is in short, and we have this problem right here. It's very relevant that what is the real problem of this world and what is it that the divine wants to solve. Because another thing which people ask, that all that is fine, you people speak good, nice philosophy, but does the ashram have anything like free food, free hospital, free medicines? Is it sending blankets to those who are in Chennai? No, it doesn't do that.
Why aren't they helping in the flood?
What they give us is blanket of their protection and light. But man doesn't want that. Man wants food because he thinks it's by matter I live. Of course, this is a crisis situation. But even after that, man lives for food. Man lives for these things. Very unfortunate. But what they can give and do give, man doesn't want it. because this matter doesn't yet understand. So the more we plunge into the matter, the more dense our consciousness becomes. And there is a very interesting term in Indian thought called Deha Atma Bodh. To feel and experience matter as the sole reality and the body as so much real. And therefore, we can't experience and sense things which are beyond this ken. Matter doesn't respond. And this is where we have this line, but soon the inert flesh responds no more. And that's why Sri Aurobindo's plunge was precisely to pull the supermind down by force. And it came down and entered into matter. So in a way, this is also a day of a partial victory. We don't look at it like that, but because of that, for the first time, the supramental consciousness fixed itself in matter and stayed for 111 hours. It had never done that. And the mother has said that is the day when the descent took place.
Yes.
And the manifestation took place later. So even in his so-called departure, or what the human eyes may say death, there was a victory over death. Then sings the sacred orgy of delight. Now this orgy of delight is the brilliant play of the luminosity and the power and the splendor of the higher worlds right up to the subtle physical. But the moment the plunge is taken and it enters into matter, all that is lost. The blaze of passion and the tide of power are taken from us, and though a glowing form abides astonishing earth, imagined supreme, too little of what was meant has left a trace. This is the problem. This is the challenge. We all experience beautiful moments, high inner experiences. But repeatedly the mother reminds us, we are not here for those things. They have been done in the past. A lot of people talk about inner experiences. That's not what we are here for. They will come and go. We are here for this hard, obscure cloak. This must retain that light and eventually burst forth through it. Nalini Daya has used a very interesting sentence when the mother left her body. He says the outer form broke, or rather, she broke through it.
Yes.
Broke through it. So we have to be on one end completely fixed with it. On the other end, call in more and more of that light, that grace, that love to heal the anomalies.
And Vivekananda's words about his body when he left.
Yes.
Same thing.
I have spat my body. One cannot bear, it's too intense a light. Earth's eyes half see, her forces half create. Her rarest works are copies of heaven's art. I think the other day someone was talking about Durga's lion, Champaklalji. So the lion we see here is a copy of a real lion that exists in the subtle world. But that is far too formidable in strength and power. This is a copy.
The mother said she always kept two
with her. So there are, even the most creative busts, the Himalayan peaks.
Yeah.
What about the inner Himalayas? The inner peaks on which Shiva resides. What would be that vision? But here, Earth tries to pick up something of that and creates but very little of that. A radiance of a golden artifice, a masterpiece of inspired device and rule. Her forms hide what they house, and only mime the unceased miracle of self-born shapes that live forever in the eternal gaze. Self-born shapes. Yes. Here, everything is shaped by all kinds of forces. We can't say that I can shape my body by my will, though to an extent our will does shape the body. And the mother speaks of it that even during conception, thoughts of the mother can shape it.
Yes.
We have a certain degree of power over this form, but it's a very limited power. Most of us do not even know it, and we cannot exercise it. We have lost it. But up till the subtle matter, we have self-born shapes. And she speaks about the supramental. that in that world, whatever your will is at that point of time, that shape you can take. You don't have to. Right now, we cannot. At the most, through the eyes and body language, some gestures, you can get some hint. But sometimes the hint can be very dubious. Someone may be sleeping and one may think he is meditating, because the signs may not be so obvious. Someone used to meditate a lot, and seemingly, and letter was written to Sri Aurobindo, oh, I wish I could meditate like him. He meditates so much. And Sri Aurobindo replied, yes, but on his wife. But outwardly it's a look-alike. But there is a true meditation where it reflects even on the very outer being.
I think I mentioned once before that in addition to this self-born line, there are two other lines, one about mother and one about himself.
Yes.
A conscious frame was here,
Yes.
a self-born force,
Yes.
about mother.
Yes.
And then the other one is adept of the self-born unfailing lines.
Yes. Absolutely.
So both of them.
Yes. And there are
So
stories like that when mother's balcony darshan would be there and people would see suddenly her body changing, suddenly she would grow tall and different shapes the body took. And the question was asked to Sri Aurobindo that how is it possible? Sri Aurobindo said, why not? Perfectly possible. The matter in her body is far more plastic and conscious to the touch. Far more plastic and conscious. And even with Sri Aurobindo, there is a beautiful story where story means Nirodha recount that he got up, Sri Aurobindo, and moved to the bookshelf. And suddenly Nirodha sees that his whole body has become transparent and he can see through the body onto the bookshelf. I have seen just a little bit of it, glimpsed it with Champaklal. I am sure some of us must have had the rare privilege to have had darshan of Champaklal. Amazing. I mean, it looked at that point of time that there is no body but just light, which is now taking a shape and now it is vanishing. And he would not allow people to touch his feet, but well, he did allow. I mean, we didn't know. We just, both myself and my wife, we bent and touched, and he did allow, and he blessed also. And that day our hunger and thirst, everything had gone. We were transported to a different state. What a body. He used to just wear a loincloth and sit. So I had a natural question. So I asked somebody, how does he travel? Because I had heard that he has traveled to various places. I said, he's terrible. How can he travel? I mean, it's so much luminosity. So then I was told that no. They know how to cover themselves up. So they veil. And Sri Aurobindo came through many, many veils. Still it was so difficult to keep that veil. Even through the matter, the radiance and the power was so much. People, darshan day. I mean, just unimaginable that what kind of radiance and power that is bursting through matter's shell. We have only read in stories that, great seers had so much tej inside them. We have read these stories. Yeah, at least, many of us must have grown up on these stories. And intuitively, I believe that yes, it would be true. But you don't see a single, person of that caliber. And with Sri Aurobindo, the mother. But they would veil themselves because we cannot bear that. So a radiance of golden artifice. That live forever in the eternal's gaze, the self-born shapes. Here in a difficult, half-finished world is a slow toiling of unconscious powers. Here is man's ignorant, divining mind, his genius born from an inconscient soil, to copy on earth's copies is his art. So this is another thing very beautifully we find in Sri Aurobindo, that he always connects with the earth. Even when he is describing something far beyond, suddenly he will, as if, bring us back to earth. And what is the difficulty? What is the problem? And for when he strives for things surpassing earth, to rude the workman's tools, too crude his stuff. Our tools, our speech and thought and brain and hands, nothing is conscious. Our feet. And the mother repeatedly, this is a primary exercise. So very often people ask, how does one practice spirituality? Very often they ask, how does one meditate? Meditation is a far cry. Let us just become more conscious. How she would make people so conscious. She said, if you have to pick up something, let's say 12 envelopes, you should be able to pick up without counting exactly the same. That's how your hand should be conscious. If you are playing the piano, if you are playing a game, at every moment there should be so much consciousness in the body itself. We are very far from that. So it's not just about meditation. That is an old yoga. It's inner experiences, meditation. It's in matter one has to become conscious. And I've seen it. I've seen it from, people often, oh, where are the yogis in the ashram? Because they are thinking of big names and people who would give big talks, etc. But each one in his own way is engaged in yoga. One of my first encounters, when I used to come and go, I used to love working in dining room with the washing section. And of course, there is always the pride that after all, I am a doctor. But, here pride and ego have no place. So you are hit very hard. So the boy who was next to me, I was obviously must be taking some great pride that, look, I am doing this work. And sattvic ego, that, and mother has her own ways. So the first thing he told me, looked at me and said, this is not how you do it. And nobody ever told me that. This is not how you do it. I said, what? He said, this is not how you hold the plates. This is not how you clean it. I said, acha, how do I clean it? So he put his hand down in the tub. Now I think they have a machine, but earlier, it used to. So he picked up 5 plates. I still remember the scene. It is impressed upon my mind's eye. And suddenly, these 5 plates were almost arranged in such a way that it looked like it's a Japanese fan. Those 5 steel plates. And then the way he worked, it's etched in my memory. It was a work of art.
Yes.
Nobody would know even his name. And I said, my God, how did you learn this? He said, no, that's how we do it. He didn't have I tried and tried, I have not succeeded.
Uta told me this beautiful story, how they were teaching her to do the spoons properly.
Yes.
You had to wash a spoon in a certain way. But she always wanted to do dishes.
Right.
So she said to the man working with her, I want to do dishes. He said, yes, you could, but he said, when I do spoons, I'm not in the right consciousness.
So much, and so many things that they have revealed. Brooming a floor, it should be done with so much consciousness, so much of. And that's why she says that the more, mother has said this, the more I grow, mother's words. She's not saying I have stopped growing. The more I grow, the more I realize that Aurobindo yoga is best done through works.
Yes.
All kinds of work. If one can put consciousness. So, but this is the problem because we have rude tools and crude stuff. And hardly with his heart's blood he achieves his transient house of the divine idea. His figure of a time in for the unborn. In. The unborn comes for a moment and rests and then goes away. It doesn't become his house. It should become his house. This is the greatest tragedy for earth, that the divine has to withdraw again and again because earth is not yet ready. Our being thrills with high, far memories and would bring down their dateless meanings here. But too divine for earthly nature's scheme. Beyond our reach, the eternal marvels blaze. So momentarily we glimpse. We cannot bring it here, fix it here. When we come back to the so-called mundane life, it's all back to mechanical, inconscient, inert way of doing everything. The mother says at one place, even walking rhythmically can be a means of yoga. Just the walk. I mean, what kind of consciousness is required? Beyond our reach, the eternal marvels blaze. Absolute they dwell, unborn, immutable, immaculate in the spirit's deathless air, immortal in a world of motionless time, and an unchanging muse of deep self space. This thing about immortals comes in several places, even in the secret knowledge.
Yes.
Above the world creators stand
Yes.
in their inviolate purity and light. Time stops there. So, we think long spaces of time. For them, it's just a moment, not even a moment, a fraction of a moment. We think, oh my God, centuries have passed, nothing has happened. So, wait, one moment. Next moment, things will happen. But that moment is for us another 1,000 years. Only when we have climbed above ourselves, a line of the transcendent meets our road and joins us to the timeless and the true. This is a real experience actually, that when the psychic being develops, it can reach a point where something from above, actually like a line of the transcendent, comes and unites itself, yokes itself. And that's a different experience. One begins to represent a godhead of one of the higher planes. And then we can glimpse something very beautiful, and our acts and speech and everything take a different hue. So he says, a line of the transcendent meets our road and joins us to the timeless and the true. It brings to us the inevitable word, the godlike act, the thoughts that never die. Then it happens. Then it's natural and normal. But there is a passage where one has to struggle. So in yoga, we have these three phases. One is effort and struggle. And then a time comes when more and more one begins to feel the hand of the grace, which is there in the beginning also, but one is not fully conscious of it. And then a time comes when this effort changes into utter effortlessness. The grace carries you. But that's when the line has already joined and something new, something else begins to develop.
And Ramakrishna's beautiful image of the monkey
Yes.
holding on,
and
the
the
kitten,
being held.
and the kitten just in its mother's mouth.
So here this used to happen when this line from the transcendent joins, new faculties, new capacities, new possibilities begin to develop in us. Yeah. Huta didn't know how to hold a pencil and draw a straight line. Yeah. But she could, train and teach her. And there are a number of instances like that. People who became poets without really... Arjava. Oh, quite a few. Niruddha. So that's when the whole nature begins to undergo a change. A ripple of light and glory wraps the brain. Just see a ripple. Imagine what would happen if there is a descent. And traveling down the moment's vanishing route, the figures of eternity arrive. As the mind's visitors or the heart's guests, they espouse our mortal brevity a while. So they come, and it's very interesting what they do. Suddenly the mind is filled with thoughts, ideas that rain down from above. One can't fabricate it, one can't labor at it. It's there, and as I think yesterday you were mentioning, or the previous day, that even the corrections would come from above. Yes. That galley slave labor is gone.
Yes. And many poets have this experience.
Yes, many poets have this experience. Or they are heart's guests. Suddenly our hearts feel what mortal hearts would not feel. And it would dare what the mortal will cannot dare. Because the heart is seized by a will from above. Or seldom in some rare delivering glimpse, are caught by our vision's delicate surmise, although beginnings only and first attempts. So, very often, people with these experiences can become yogis, gurus, demigods, saints, sages. But Sri Aurobindo says we are not here even for that. That is only the beginning. That is the old type reaching a point. But the new type will be very different. The perfection of the old type, the highest was the hero, the saint, the sage, the seer. But that's not enough. They are glimpses. These glimpses itself are so powerful.
Yes.
They can completely change us. There is a reversal of consciousness. And of course, if one is a bit hot headed, then it's very dangerous too. Because, as the mother says, even if thou wouldst rain down on him intuition's rain, this in triple soul forces, man's ego, man's spiritual ego, would swell and he would sink under its weight. And we know the instances, how catastrophically people became gurus. Of course, there are gurus, mini gurus, big gurus, and market is flooded with gurus and gadgets. And, and the real guru must be having a good laugh.
I bought an inexpensive cell phone and it's called Samsung Guru. That's my only guru outside of Mother Sri Aurobindo.
There is a line of Tagore with regard to this kind of, self-glorification. These few glimpses and human beings believe, they are something. So there is a festival of Jagannath in Odisha where the everyday people go to the temple to have a glimpse of the deity. But one day the deity comes out to have a glimpse at the world. Surely why he goes back after one day is understandable, because the world is in a mess and nobody likes to see that. I'm sure that's why he doesn't stay. But that apart, so Tagore has written a poetry on it that as the deity comes out, everybody is, throwing himself at the road, prostrating before the deity. So he says, Path jane ami dev. The road is thinking, I am the Godhead. So they are going at the path. Roth jane ami dev. The chariot thinks I am the God, because they are bowing before me. Dev jane ami dev. The deity, the idol thinks I am God. They are bowing before me. And he ends with a punchline, Hase antaryami. The divine who dwells within takes a good laugh. These are glimpses.
Yeah.
That's why when mother came here, she says, for the first time I understood what they mean in India when they say renouncing your spiritual experiences. Even that has to be renounced. Sri Aurobindo in Pondicherry says, all that I experienced before coming here, now all that he experienced is no less formidable. I think that is enough to, for eternity his name would be there. All that I have experienced before coming to Pondicherry. That means the experience of, through pranayama, of the Advaita, infinite, the experience of the world mother in a small image, the experiences of
In the jail.
all kinds of subtle seeing, the Vasudevam Sarvamiti, the Nirvana consciousness, and the communication with the gods. All this he had experienced before coming to Pondicherry. And he says, all that I experienced before coming to Pondicherry were just but glimpses, preparatory movements. Now, who would speak of them as preparatory movements? But this, the spirit of this yoga, that one doesn't stop with these things. They are good, but that's not what it is. So he speaks of that. These glimmerings point to the secret of our birth. Although beginnings only and first attempts, these glimmerings point to the secret of our birth and the hidden miracle of our destiny.
And now he lifts us.
Now he lives. What we are there and here on earth shall be is imaged in a contact and a call. That seals the moment. If once the heart has responded to the mother's love and call, the rest is history.
Yes.
Let time resist let all the forces wage a war against. But that is what will have its victory in the end. This should be the certitude. If the gopis are drawn to Krishna's call, abandoning themselves at the call of the flute, that beginning is also the end. And all the rest in between is ultimately of no real consequence. The hearts that are enamored of the divine, even for one moment. And the mother would say that if you have turned to the divine, and the divine has said yes, then the world cannot keep you away. Eventually, that yes is far more greater. It outweighs the entire world and all its movement. There would be complexities will come, life will take this or that turn tossed upon, but that yes will eventually prevail. So these are glimmerings. It points to our origin and what we shall be. So in the origin, we are also shown the close.
Yes.
So it's amazing and gives so much hope. Is imaged in a contact and a call. As yet, last few lines, as yet earth's imperfection is our sphere. Our nature's glass shows not our real self. That greatness still abides, held back within. We see outward things and we judge by outward things. And when people go to mother and say, oh, mother, this person is like this, she says, my child, I know what I am seeing. And then she would say, I always look towards beauty, towards light, towards truth. She would see in the depths what the person is and not what the person appears. We see only externalities, but there is something in the depth which she has seen.
And what they will become.
What they will become is imaged in that.
Yes.
And the divine keeps on, That greatness still abides, held back within. Who knew that inside the mound of white ants, inside the heart of a crude robber who would lay people on the highway, there was the heart of a poet who would one day write the epic of Ramayana. Who would know it? And that's what is our reality. It's a story which works at so many levels. And that's what we have to remember. That greatness still abides, held back within. Earth's doubting future hides our heritage. Looking at a caterpillar, who would think of a butterfly? Looking at the dust below our feet, who could have imagined a man, a hero, a sage, born out of this dust? As Aurobindo says in the Life Divine, if there was an eternal witness in the beginning, he would have wondered that what are you planning to make out of this dust? And God would say, wait and see. So this is the marvel. The light now distant shall grow native here. The strength that visits us, our comrade power, the ineffable shall find a secret voice. The imperishable burn through matter's screen, making this mortal body Godhead's robe. This is the mystery of 5th December.
Yes.
The spirit shall burn through matter's cloak and making this body. See, these lines so beautifully describe what happened on 5th December in a very another way. The imperishable burn through matter's screen. It cannot hold that growing tej, that light which is descending. Aurobindo was constantly pulling the supramental. That's what he was engaged in. So much so that even for Savitri, the only work which he took interest still was Savitri. Otherwise, he would not give importance to anything else. No. Because he was pulling that light. And eventually what happens? It burns through matter's cloak. The imperishable burn through matter's screen, making this mortal body Godhead's robe. And that's what we witnessed on the 5th of December, 1950.
2 more lines.
Yes, 2 more lines. The Spirit's greatness is our timeless source, and it shall be our crown in endless time. This is the logic of transformation. Because from the light we come, and to the light we go. Savitri.